Writing a series, The Saga. I'm Karen Beery with Right Now Editing, where we turn good manuscripts into great books.
And I'm Pegg Thomas, multi-award winning author and editor, and we are two editors for 5 minutes, more or less.
More or less. All right, we got the clock started. Last week, we talked about writing a series using connected characters to tie the books together. This week, we're going to talk about the long version, the
The
saga.
saga.
So, Peg,
Yes.
what what makes a series a saga?
A saga it can be one of two ways. It can be one that ends in cliffhangers and then picks up with the next book, or it can be one where each story is a complete story, but the story goes on in the next book. So each story is its own complete story, but there's an overarching story which encompasses the whole series. And that's what I just finished writing in my Salem Village series. Um, it was an experience. I had not written a saga before. I may never write another one. It is a lot to keep track of. It's a lot of characters to keep track of to make sure they all stay in character for, in my case, 3.5 books, because I started with a novella that was a prequel because there were so many characters in this. It deals with the Salem witch trials, a lot of real historical figures, a lot of figures from my family history that are in the book. And I wanted to introduce them in just this novella, which is a complete story in itself, and then go into books 1, 2, and 3 of the saga. To me, that kind of because we did a few weeks ago, we did a series on naming characters. And when you get into a saga, you have a lot of characters that you have to name. And so it's really important to deliver those in some way that you don't befuddle the reader with so many characters in a series. But the saga, then, each particular book has its own beginning, middle, and end. It each tells its own story, but it each also moves forward the overarching story, which in my case was the Salem witch trials, um, to get to
And
the conclusion.
usually a saga is going to be a longer period of time. So, like we
Usually.
were talking about the connecting characters, you could realistically, you could write a connecting characters series that all takes place in the same time period because
Yeah,
you could be looking at one group of people and it could all be the same 2 week time period. But when you look at the saga, it literally is chronological. One story follows the next, follows the next. And
right.
so I'll jump out of both of our genres for a second. The Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars franchises, those are sagas because it's one after the next after the next. You cannot skip a book in a saga. If you skip the middle
No.
book, you're going to lose so much of what's happening because there's just
Yes, they have to be read in order.
yeah, you're literally going to take a chunk of time out, and that could be when somebody, that I mean, well, there's going to be major plot points that happen in that
Yes.
saga. So, Peg, how long is your saga? How many years? Is it
Um,
years? Is it months?
No, it's actually just under a year from
Hmm.
the start of the witch trials until they were disbanded, um, was just under a year. And mine started a little bit before, so I think I started in December and it runs through November of the next year.
So you definitely can if you want to write a longer piece, if you want to write family history, not just, how these sisters all survived the same summer, but you can write, generationally. You can write the grandmother, the mother, the daughter, and that would be saga because
Right,
if you skip one, you're going to miss important details that, prepare the next story. So, Peg,
right.
if you had to do a saga all over again,
Yes.
what are some tips that you would give writers who want to do this so that they don't have to make mistakes that you made?
You need to have a very comprehensive file for your characters. More so than you do, I think, for, well, connected characters you do too. Um, but with the saga, because you're going from one to the other, they're changing ages. So instead of just saying, well, he was 21, no, you need a birth date. Because as time goes on, especially if you're in a multi-year saga, You need to be able to figure that rather quickly. So you need more than just an age, you need a birth date. Um, you need to keep those characters in character throughout the saga. And if you're going years, remembering that they're maturing, right?
Hmm.
So they're not going to act childish when they're if your one character is 10 years older in book three than he was in book one, you need to make him 10 years older. You need to make him more mature. So there's just, I think, knowing your time frame and getting your characters to fit it throughout that time frame. Like mine was less than a year, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. But if you're doing one that, okay, this is about the grandmother and then this was about the mother and this is about the daughter, they have to age and mature through that series. And so you have to be thinking, so you really got to be thinking about your characters. And if you're also doing one multi-age, then you're also going to need copious notes about the history of that time, what was going on in the world, because it would be really unrealistic if you're writing this multi-generation and we get to the Cold War and you never mention that, right? And that totally doesn't come across anybody's radar as they're having conversations, would be totally unrealistic. So you need to know what's going on in history. You need to know how that would have impacted them. And you have to weave all that in to that saga.
And we would love to share more, but even though I remembered to set the timer, I forgot to watch it. So the timer went off a little while ago, but Peg's got good information. So if you
There you
have
go.
questions on Saga, let us know. We'll answer them. But come back next week because we have one more series type to talk about. Until then, I'm Karen Beery.
And I'm Peg Thomas, and we'll see you next time.